Hey there guys, what's up? It's JP here, and I'm going to try and do all the rest of the classes at one go here. Now, I did mention previously I was going to try and do it separately, but I don't see a point having like nine, what is it, nine, 8 different videos, so it doesn't make sense here. So I'm going to just go through each card really quickly and tell you whether I think if they're good or not, and roughly what kind of archetypes you think I think is going to be either being spawned or it's going to remain dominant in the meta. So we're going to start off with the Forest Craft. Got White Wolf of Elwood. This is Rush. 8 for 4/4 becomes a 6/6. Spells when you put on the highest cost Forest Craft cards, excluding White Wolf of Elwood, from your deck to your hand, and at the start of the turn, change its cost to 0. So that's a really interesting card. I don't think it's a really good card in general. Like it has a lot of you can't pick out another one which would probably be way better, but like I would actually prefer it to just say randomly put one or rather just put another White Wolf Elwood here. That would actually make this card good, but as it is, I don't think it's really good. The only real big cards that you might want to fish out are like in this expansion itself, so I can't really tell if this is meant to kind of push that archetype. Now it doesn't feel that way, or this ability doesn't feel conducive to the archetype they seem to be trying to push here, but more on that a bit later on. Let's move on here. We have Selwyn's Command, someone as Sky Strike Raptor. That's a 2/1 Storm, and then enhance 8, put the Grand Archer Selwyn from your hand, and that can change cost to 0. So this is actually a pretty decent like tempo-ish card. I really like this card actually. I can't convince myself it's good though. If anybody knows whether this is like put it in your hand from your deck, I don't think so, right? Because they would word it like this if they did. So I'm guessing it just spawns one, which is actually pretty decent. Um, I like the card a lot. The main problem with Seldon before was that it was competing with Ancient Elf Cynthia, and Cynthia is just like absolutely way more powerful than this. So um, this might be a way to play around with that. It's really a really strong tempo style card here because you get 2 minions for one card that costs 8. Roughly the value of the card is worth, I would say, 9. It's either 6 or 8, right? So it's actually just correctly stated for its ability. I really like this card. You'll probably see play in some kind of a tempo, like in the current tempo elf. But if it doesn't see play there, then it probably won't see play anyway. That's just my take on it. Next you have Elf of Gemstones. Whenever this another allied follower comes into play, give it rush. So this is a really cool card. It's a really good card. This will probably see play in the current iteration of Tempo Elf and probably nothing else. Um, like the general theme of this expansion seems to be board control style deck, so I don't really see that here. So like this ability may seem like a really good like control ability because you just spawn your fairies and you can trade up, but um, I don't think that's better than just playing Cynthia on curve and slamming your opponent in the face for like 20 and just kill him outright. And like PvP, I still think like it's probably going to be better than any control forest. So I like this card a lot. It's definitely a really good take 2 card, just like the other 2 cards, but that's about it. Next we have Mahes. This is a pretty insane card. Ward is a 6 for 5/5 because it's 7/7, so that's about average, maybe slightly understated. But it has Ward and then fan value damage for 2 to all enemy followers. That is 2 other cards were played, so it's a big board wipe. Board wipe on a creature is always good. The fact they had to play 2 other cards before this means worst case is probably going to be a turn 8. Best case is turn 6. It's a good card. You'll definitely see play. Whether it's constructor viable or not, they're trying to push the control forest craft deck, and if that deck takes off, this would definitely be in it. This card is probably a little bit it's just not good enough to see play in Tempo, in my opinion. Or Tempo is just such a well crafted deck as it is. It'd be hard pressed to see any changes made to it. Next we have Crystal, Talia, Lily, enhance 6, transform and we follow into a snowman, 2 for 2/2. So the ability looks really cool. It is a really strong tempo control tool. Personally, I don't think this card is going to see play constructed, but in Take Two, it's something to keep in the back of your mind. It's a good card though, and it might see play in the control forest craft, but I'm still hard pressed to think that archetype will kick off. It's got Pegasus Elf, 5 for 3/3, becomes a 4/4, fanfare change, and we followers to half, evolve, change, defense to 1, and then evolve, deal 1 damage to enemy followers. So this card is pretty mediocre. It basically says 5 for 4/4 and kill an enemy follower. It's decent, but it's not like this. It's just so poorly staggered in a deck that doesn't seem to need it. So, I mean, this is a control tool like the other cards, but I don't. Again, it's just because you slam a bunch of control cards into the meta doesn't necessarily mean that the meta will slow down. Especially if aggro decks, like some of these tools can double in aggro decks or mid range or tempo or combo. So, um, I don't think this card is good at all. Maybe in Take Two, but that's about it. Lionel Elf Prince 5 for 2/2 becomes a 4/4. Then pair choose a 4+ card in your hand and change its cost. In your hand that costs 4 play points or less and change it to 0. So this is a really cool, like really strong tempo card. You play this on 5, you evolve, or you just play this on 5 and you play the other 4/5, get the 2 else or 0, then you just flood the board. Really powerful card, I like it a lot. Probably see play in mid-range tempo style elf forest decks. Take Two would probably be a good card as well. Next I have Salper Kitten, Fanfare, +1/+1, Felix, 2 other cards to play this turn. 1 for 1. Well, the one thing about 1-drops is that you can never underestimate their value. Especially in Take Two, where 1-drops can either make or break the game, right? Because playing a 1-drop that gets eaten up by a 2-drop and then the 2-drop eats up another one, that's really, really bad for you. But if like your 1-drop trades up, you more or less always win the game. So only issue is that this card is really small and +1/+1 with 2 other cards, it's unlikely you're gonna have 0+ cards in your hand, so on turn 1, so it's a pretty bad card, I think. Probably won't see play anyway. Next you have Entangled Vines, give enemy follow -10, -0 until the end of the turn. Enhance 5, destroy it instead. It's a good card. It screams control, it screams Take Two. I like it a lot. It probably won't see play in anything other than a control style Forestcraft, which does seem like what they're trying to push here. And in Take Two is definitely good enough, right? Because worst case is -10, -0. All your creatures just get a free trade. Um, that's the worst case. Best case is you just kill something for 6. And you should never underestimate removal in Take Two. Any like 5-win stack will have at least 2 or 3 like hard removal like this. So really good card. Moving on, we have Forest Spirit, 3 for 3/2. Last one, put the Woodkin curse into your hand. Same for the evolve ability. So basically, this again, this looks like a really control card. It's staggered really aggressively though, so it's a bit contradicting that way. Sorry, I was yawning there. I'm a bit tired. The fact that you can get like value out of this card kind of indicates to me. Let me just read this one further. The fact that you can get a card out of nowhere is a pretty big deal, especially in Take Two, where this card is basically hard removal. More likely than not, you're gonna have some kind of ping effect or fairy in a Take Two deck. So, like you can basically get like, a free trade on a big creature later on. It's a decent card, but probably not good enough to see playing constructed. Next we have Forest Gigas, Geiger's Ward, Fanfare, gain X plus 0, X equals to the number of cards in your hand. It's a 7 for 1/7. So for this card to actually be good, you would have to land on at least 6 cards, I'd imagine. Um, it's doable, but only in a really control heavy style deck. Um, I'm not sure if it's um, viable though as a card. Probably not even in Take Two, just because of how poorly statted it is if you don't buff it significantly. It's hard to imagine seeing this C play anyway other than Take Two is what I'm trying to say here. Uh, Maybe they should go into something like a Rose Queen deck, control style deck. But that's about it. Probably not in PTP and definitely not in Tempo. So and this Sky Strike Slider. So that's all for the forest graph here. Generally, the impressions is that the set is trying to push a control archetype. It also has a lot of really strong Take Two cards, which would help them quite a lot in Take Two. A lot of people do struggle. I do know quite a few people that struggle with forest graph and Take Two. I've never really understood why. Like, sure, once in a while you go like 0 and 5, but that's entirely possible with any other class as well. So um, it is harder. I would admit that it is harder to get a 5 wins 5-0 deck in Take Two with Forest Craft, and a lot of these cards seem to kind of like fill in a little bit of that bridging that they need here to keep up with other decks in the Take Two format. So um, generally, all I feel is just a buff to Take Two for Forest Craft, and maybe in Constructed you'll try to spawn a control Forest Craft. I'm sure somebody will make a deck like that. Whether it's going to be like really really competitive is a different story altogether. I still think PTP and Tempo will still be the two prominent decks. Moving on, we have Swordcraft. We have the Albert Selvin Saber, 5 for 3/5, becomes a 5/7. Storm and Hunts 9 can be damaged until the end of the turn. This card is played, can attack twice per turn. So basically, it's only good if you get it on Enhance, and then on Enhance, is it worth playing this over something like an Alexander? I'll be really hard pressed to say yes. Just because Alexander and this actually does two very different things. Like, this is a really good finisher, but it's about it, right? Because you just slam this on 9 and then punch him in the face for 10. As a Swordcraft, if you haven't done 10 damage to your opponent on turn 9, I'd be pretty shocked. This again, it can be used as more of a control tool as well. You train the smaller minions. I quite like it. The only problem is on curve it competes with Regal Saber, which I still think is just slightly better than this. The ability to just like the chance to just be immune to effects is probably just too powerful. But it's a good card. It's definitely good. It's definitely Take Two viable. It's probably one of the better cards you can get in Take Two. But then again, Swordcraft does have a lot of really good goals as well. So, is this better than the other goals? Probably like a couple of them, but not all of them. I like this card. It's probably going to spawn and use type of either aggro or control deck. If you ask me, I don't think this fits in the mid range as well as it would appear. So next we got Castle in the Sky, countdown 15. Whenever an ally follower comes into play, subtract 1 from this amulet's countdown. Last words, give +1/+1 and storm to all allied Swordcraft followers. So this is a really interesting card. I've actually looked at this and been thinking really long and hard about this. Doing the math, it doesn't even curve well into Otohime, which kind of baffles me because like whenever I think of flooding the board, Otohime is the one that comes to mind. So like the fact that it doesn't like time perfectly with that, like I'm just going on the assumption that you turn 5, like you turn 4 to him and then you turn 5. Rather turn 4 Floral Fencer, then maybe you turn 5 Floral Fencer again. And then you also Hime. It's still a little bit shy of proccing. and that's only assuming that they wipe your whole board, right? So overall, I think this card is actually a lot worse than it looks, but I wouldn't be surprised because aggro is such a prominent thing, and then flooding the board is really easy for aggro. But personally, I think this banner is a much better card than this. This is my take on it. Do feel free to leave a comment if you have another view of this. But I just think like this looks like a combo in Ambula, and I don't see a combo. So overall, I think it's a bad card. Next, we have Amelia Silver Paladin, 4 for 5, 3 4 because of 5/6. So that's the premium stat line. Fan put Gabriel Cat. Geld Vice Captain to your hand, and then change its cost to 0 if at least 3 followers are in play. So the Vice Captain is a little bit further here. It's this guy. Fanfare get +1/+1 if your commander is in play, so they synergize off each other if you can pull off the ability. I think it's a good card. Definitely screams like board control. Generally, Swordcraft doesn't have a lot of spells if they have any at all, and um, this is like a really cool substitution for spells to push for the board aggressively. I really like it. I don't think it's good enough in aggro, even though aggro is the board. Generally, it's the board that you would think that there'll be a lot of small dudes, but it just feels like a more control-oriented ability. I really like this card. I think it'll see play pretty much in every deck that can afford to have a 4-drop outside of Floral Fencer. Floral Fencer is still strictly better, but there's no reason you can't play both, right? So, alright, next we got Fangblade Slayer, Bane, Rush. Whenever whenever this follower attacks an enemy follower, deal X damage to the enemy leader equals to this follower's attack. So this card is absolutely ridiculous. It makes no sense. It's so powerful, right? Because it has Bane. So basically the attack is negligible. Unless like people are attacking into it, I believe, then I believe the ability doesn't proc. I could be wrong though. No, it does proc. So it's basically like saying this card is broken as hell. You kill anything that touches it, and with 10 health, it's going to trade into quite a few things. Really powerful card. You'll probably see play in a control style what do you call it, swordcraft deck. I have been playing a lot of control swordcraft, and the general issue I've had is with the finisher. If you don't pull off Leonidas and like a follow-up, you're basically screwed 90% of the time. Alexander's really great and all, but all it does is wipe the board, and then usually initiative goes back to the opponent. So this is a pretty decent alternative here. It can hit face, whether directly or indirectly, which is really good. I like this card a lot. You see playing Control Sword. You see play Take 2. You've already seen this guy. We have the Geno Levin card. Levin Vanguard 4 for 3/4, got to 6/5, really aggressively statted. Rush Enhance 6, gain last with summon 2 knights. It's a mediocre card. I don't think it's that great. I mean, you can count the stats. Stats for 6 is in 8/7, which is sure it's great, but I don't know. You have to suicide this guy in, right? So is it worth it? I'm not entirely sure. I don't think so. This is more of like a aggressive or tempo style card. Um, so you won't see play in control decks. It might be good enough in Take 2 though. I don't think it's horrible. I'll need to play around with it, but overall I think this card is pretty mediocre. Probably wouldn't see play, but we'll see how it goes. Next we got Cyclone Blade. Choose an allied follower, deal X damage to all other followers, X equals to damage to chosen followers. So this card I think is pretty terrible. Like, again, unless there's only one creature on the board, then it's insane on your side. But if it's like, if you have board like this card, it's pretty much useless. So I don't think you'll see playing Constructor at all, to be quite honest. In Take 2, it's probably not good enough as well. Moving on, we have Monica Cloud Hall Admiral 5 for 4/4, that's 5/5, so that's really poor stat. Fanfare Summon Knight. Evolve, do X damage to an enemy follower, X equals the number of followers to play. Okay, so maybe it's not that bad. Like, it'll ping for at least 2, which is pretty decent. Um, Pinging for 2, summoning a knight, and having a 5/5 is a pretty big deal. It is a very strong board control oriented card, which I really like, which is key for control decks, right? Some people might say, sure, it's a really aggressive deck. It can be put in any deck, to be quite honest. Um, like, what deck wouldn't benefit from ability like this, right? So it's a really good card. I like it. You'll probably see play everywhere, except maybe Banner Sword. Next we have Samurai, 2 for 2/2, becomes a 4/4. Fanfare, gain +1/+1, and Bane if 3 or more followers in play. So it's just a strictly better fighter, strictly better Fervit, not Fervit Soldier. What's the other one? It's the 2/2 with Ward, right? I think this is just strictly better than that. Just because if you have board control, you get a 3/3 for 2. I think Fervit Soldier still a little bit better just because it gets buffed every time. Like, you can buff it to quite a bit decent attack as opposed to this one, but Bane is not to be underestimated as well. It is a good card, but it's constructed good, I think not, to be quite honest, but take 2 definitely. Yeah, nice card. Actually, at 50 is a 3 for 2/2, becomes a 4/4. Clash, draw a card, so Clash, I'm guessing, if I'm not mistaken, is a, hold on, give me a second, let me just, alright, I think I'm back here. Yeah, so Clash is basically an ability that, is I attack into a follower. So if I attack into a follower, I draw a card that's decent. I don't think it's like amazing, but um, like, there are definitely better 3 drops than this. So I think overall this card is pretty poor. Um, but in take 2, sometimes you get thrown into shittiest cards. So maybe you'll see play in take 2, but it's definitely not a top pick. Next we have Blitz Lancer, 3 for 3/2 rush. It's a rush guy. It's got nice artwork. I think it's a bad card, honestly. Like, you don't want your turn 3 to be just rushing into something and ending the turn right there, right? It's like, unless you're like really struggling for board control, there's no way this card is good. So yeah. Overall, don't get me wrong, the rush ability is good. The card is good. I just don't think it's like constructed good, so it's probably not gonna see playing constructed. But in take 2, you will pick this in take 2. It's probably one of the better 3 drops that you can pick, at least in this rarity slot. So yeah, that's all for the Swordcraft. Swordcraft seems to have a very clear direction here. It's just going for this really floody style deck here, with some really big finishers at the end. Not sure why that happened there. The only deck that I really can see benefiting from this expansion is the Control Swordcraft, which I think is actually better than um, aggressive Swordcraft decks. So yeah, other than that, it's not really buffing its take 2 competitiveness too much. If anything, it seems to be nerfing it a little bit. Why does it keep doing that? So there's that as well. I don't think Swordcraft will be the best take 2 deck anymore. One of the best, if not the best take 2 deck anymore. But it's like, if you can draft the way you've always drafted Swordcraft decks, which is just basically get as many floor offenses as you can, you'll still be fine. But the overall strength of the deck, I think, is going to go down a little bit in take 2. Let's move on to Runecraft here. Now, Runecraft is the class that I had the hardest time depicting here, and you'll see why. First off, we have Daria, Dimensional Witch, 9 for 5/5, becomes a 7/7 Fanfare, banish all cards in your hand, draw 5 cards, and spell boost the cards in your hand 5 times, subtract 0 from this card. From the cost of this card, spell boost, subtract 1 more. So basically, you just want to subtract this to, like, the big issue is that we've never seen a deck that would want to run this card until now, right? After looking at it really, really, really hard, the only deck that I can think of is an aggressive deck. And here's the reason, right? Spell boosting is a fairly easy thing to achieve with Runecraft. Um, But banishing all the cards in your hand and drawing 5 is pretty terrible. The only time you would want to do this is if you had no hand, right? So if you have no hand, that is absolutely insane. And the only decks that have generally run out of cards really quickly are aggressive decks. So this does spawn a new, like, they're trying to steer it into a new direction. That's very apparent, but whether this direction is better than the combo one, we'll have to see. Based off the history of Shadowverse, of the previous expansion, Darkness Evolve, I would say probably it's going to be pretty decent here. It's a really good card. It's like, it's it reminds me a lot of Flame Destroyer. Only like it's significantly more powerful than Flame Destroyer in a deck like that, where you can just dump your whole hand. Make no mistake, you'll probably play this and Flame Destroyer in the same deck, right? It's just going to be like a very floody style deck, which I think is really cool. Um, Other than that, it's not going to see play anywhere else because you don't want to dump your hand as like a D shift runecraft or anything like that. So I'm guessing this is going to be an aggressive tool for a really aggressive deck, and we'll see more of this later on. So let's just move on here, and you get to see it like unfold, right? Next, you have Professor of Taboos, 6 for 3/5. Whenever an enemy follower is destroyed during your turn, summon a zombie. At the end of the turn, perform Earthright, destroy a random enemy follower, and then the ability cycles. So think long and hard about that, right? Sure, this is a really strong control tool, but it's probably better as an aggressive tool, right? Because it basically guarantees a kill on something. So it looks like they're trying to make it like a rune, like a Earthright aggro deck, which is really really cool. I think it's this card is pretty good. Whether or not this card sees play in the Earthright aggro deck, I'm still a bit on the fence. But like you can see how they're trying to push the emphasis away from the spells and more into like the follower based action, which I think is pretty cool. It's never fun to play against D-Shift Runecraft. Um, Next we have Anne Bell of Mysteria, 8 for 3/3 because of 4/4. Fanfare summon Gia the Dragonborn and evolve it. Whenever this follower attacks, do 1 damage to all enemy followers. So I've Gria is below here in Dragoncraft for whatever reason. And it basically allows you to attack twice. So basically this card is Fanfare get a what 4/4 and then it can attack twice. The issue I have with this card is both of these are really controlling effects, right? Like attacking twice, you can't attack face when you evolve, so you have to attack followers, and it only has 4 health, so it's like really really weak. Same for this one, right? Whenever this follower attacks after evolve, deal 1 damage to all enemy followers. It's not gonna survive the first attack, most likely they're not at turn 8. So overall, I think these two cards are actually really poor. Um, but I'm guessing it has to do with nerfing the overall power of these two decks as well in Take Two. Runecraft, if you ask me, is actually my best Take Two deck. It's pretty close with Dragoncraft, in my opinion. Like I've probably gotten more consistent results from Dragoncraft and Swordcraft, but when my Runecraft decks are good, I just outright go 5 and 0. I don't even get 4 and 1s, right? So I either get 3 or less or 5 and 0, right? So it's either pretty mediocre or it's going to be a really powerful deck. And like these two cards are just meant to like stop you from this constantly drafting really good decks. None of these are constructed viable, by the way. That's just my take on it. Okay, Secret Erasmus, you 5 damage to every follower, enhance 9, summon Arc Summoner Erasmus instead. So it's a pretty good card. I'm guessing you don't get this from your deck, you just pull one out of the air, which is really really powerful, because it can be used in D-Shift, and Erasmus is actually really really good. People underestimate the power of Erasmus. I don't see this card in Take Two for whatever reason. Like, what other legendary are you going to pick over Erasmus in Take Two? That absolutely baffles me. The only one, class specific wise, is probably not better than Erasmus, right? What is better than Erasmus in like I just don't get it, right? The only time you would pick a legendary in Take Two over Erasmus is if Olivia was on the other side. So there's that. But yeah, back to the subject here. Erasmus is really powerful. It's a really good card. Like you could put this, you could just slam this in D shift, and then we turn 3, deal 5 damage. It's a good card. It's a really good card. And the worst case is turn 9 gonna you just slam down Erasmus and then they burn all the removal on it. Like you can't keep Erasmus up. So think long and hard about it. I like this card a lot. I think it's gonna see play in D shift. I think only D shift would run this card. So yeah, and take two, like take all of that and take two. So moving on, we have Dwarf Alchemist 2 for 2/2 becomes a 3/3. So a little bit under stated here. Fanfare, put an Earth Essence in your hand. Evolve, put a random card with Earth right in your hand. From your deck to your hand. So it's a really good card. Like you'll definitely see play in Earthright decks. Again, this kind of looks like a really like aggressive card to me. That's because like it forces you to have whatever aggressive combination you want, right? Or whatever combination you want, you get it really aggressively, which I think is really cool. Um, I like this card a lot. It's really understated, so in take two you might not pick this unless you are able to draft a really good runecraft like a right deck. Which generally, if you're doing well in take two as runecraft, you're getting basically a runecraft of right deck. So it's a really good card. I like it. You probably see play in constructed and in take two quite a lot. Next we have Clark, Arcane Soldier, 3 for 2/3, becomes a 4/5. Fan spell boost the followers in your hand 2 times. So this is the card that was like this is the most obvious reason that I mentioned aggressive deck for the legendary. What's her name? Daria. Just because cards like you'll see another card with this similar ability, right? Spell boosting only the followers in your hand. So basically, it lets you just dump your hand pretty fast. You run the 3 drop, the 3 drop that costs 2/2, or rather the 2/2 that costs 3, and then you spell boost that, and then that kind of style of deck. Um, the other card is stated really poorly though, but it can be like a really good tempo tool. Uh, I don't think it's gonna spawn a tempo deck as per se as much as an aggressive deck. Like flooding the board doesn't scream tempo or mid range to me. It just screams aggro. So like this is the most obvious indicator. So I like this card a lot. I think you'll see play in that deck and in that deck alone. Next we have Piercing Rune. Deal 2 damage to enemy follower. And then deal 2 damage to the enemy leader. If an allied follower evolves, change the cost of this card to 1. So this is a really powerful card. Again, this looks like a really aggressive card to me. It's because it does a bit of haste damage. You can go ahead and slam this on the creature, kill it. If it doesn't kill it, whatever, you get the 2 damage and then all your really cheap followers just smash him in the face and kill him. Like, it's pretty apparent that that's what they're going for here. But it's kind of just good enough to see play in any other Runecraft deck. Like even D-Shift would probably play this. Even Earthright would play this because odds are you're gonna have an involved follower anyways. So really powerful card. I like it. You'll see play everywhere. Disaster Witch, 6 for 5/4 becomes a 7/6. Fan put a Crimson Sorcery in your hand. So this is like the bigger version of the Crimson Mage thing. I like it. I think it's like stated super aggressively, which is rare in this game. Like to be this aggressive in terms of stat line. Um, but I like the ability a lot. Like card advantage always good. Don't get me wrong, I think this is strictly a take two card though. Like you probably wouldn't play this in any deck I can think of at the very least. Maybe you would consider this in D shift, but that's about it. Because it's slightly better than the other 2 drop because the other 2 drop requires you to evolve, and generally the card that you want to evolve in D shift is Merlin. So yeah, maybe this replaces the 2 drop in that deck, but other than that, I don't think it's seen play anywhere else than in take two. In take two, this is a pretty decent card. Like it's aggressively stated. You kill. Odds are if you go first and you slam this on turn 5 or turn 6, it's going to trade at least 2 for 1, and then it gives you a card that you can ping off. So it could potentially be like a 3 for 1 kind of scenario. And spells are always good in Windcraft. Next we have Craig, Wizard of Mysteria, 2 for 2/2, becomes a 4/4. Fanfare spell boost a follower in your hand 2 times. So there we go, another spell boost follower card. It's really good. It's really good card in that aggressive Windcraft card. Speaking of, I probably see it play there. Next we have Timeless Witch, 3/4, becomes a 5/6. Fanfare, your leader can't be damaged until this follower. What? Sorry. Where did it go there? Until this follower leaves the area. So again, this screams like aggro. Like it's a really big 4-drop. Like the 5/6 is like the premium stat line, right? For the 4 drops, and it's going to trade like. Think about this, right? Floral Fencer almost trades equally for this, and the only reason like you want an ability like this is so that you don't take damage, which may seem like some people may be thinking, oh, that's a control deck, but that's not necessarily true. Generally, decks that benefit from this are aggressive decks, where like in order, like in a race war, uh, where both players that's attacking phase, an ability like this basically says, I win because you have to kill this and run your guys into it, and I get to go face. So it's a huge deal that way. It does look like it belongs in an aggressive deck. In my eyes, maybe some people can argue control, but I just don't see it. Especially since control probably rather run Floral Fencer. Or rather, what's the other one? Uh, Merlin, because the only control deck is basically the combo deck, which is you know what it is. So, and then in like uh, Earthright decks, you want Remy and Remy for sure. So this obviously is meant for this aggro follower base style deck that I was talking about. And lastly, we have over the biggest example of pushing that as well. Subtract 0 from this cost, spell boost, subtract 1 more, it's a 5 or 5/6. So basically, if you get this at 4, it's really good here, but you could get it probably even up at turn 3 here, making long and hard. So it's 2. Yeah, so you can get this on turn 3, which is a really aggressive play, which I like a lot. I think you'll spawn the new deck type. I think, I don't know if it'll be really good, but I know that that would be a thing, right? So moving forward here, we'll see one or two things. Uh, well, we definitely see this first thing where people experiment with this deck, right? Just flood the board with all these followers, then replenish with like card draw and the Daria card. And if that doesn't work out, in 2 or 3 weeks, you will never see that deck ever again. So it's gonna be one of those two things. Personally, I think there's like enough foundation for it to mixed in with the Earthright, which is one of the cards themes that they're trying to push. I think there's just enough of it for this style of deck to be viable. Um, but we have to see. Overall, its Take-Two experience is going to be quite an improvement, I think, as well. I really like it. Probably the one of the more obvious power creeps for Take-Two outside of Forestcraft. Next we have Dragoncraft here, and Dragoncraft is again one of those weird archetypes, but you'll see why. First you have Imperial Dragoon. Fanfare, discard your hand, do X damage to all enemies, including face. X equals the number of cards you discarded here, so this is really powerful effect. It's obviously trying to fit and push the discard dragon deck here. I'm not convinced that that deck is still going to be good because it's so gimmicky, right? And this is one of the way to legitimize its gimmickiness, but the issue I have with this card is that if you slam this and it doesn't finish off your opponent, what's stopping him from killing it the following turn, right? And think about it, right? If he kills it, then what happens next? You have no cards in your hand, you can draw one card, and that one card had better save you, right? So I don't like it. I will play around with it, but overall I think this card is pretty poor. Next we have Breath of Salamander, or as I call it, FU Ozohime. Deal 3 to enemy follower, enhance 6, deal 2 damage to all enemy followers. So this is the answer to the on-curve Ozohime, right? Some people would say conflagration is better, but sometimes you don't draw conflagration. Sometimes you need multiple board wipes, and this is a way to ensure that you get it on turn 6, right? Without ramp. Next we have Greer. Greer is terrible. Don't bother. Let's skip that. We have Ifa, 3 for 4/3. Can be attack enhance 7, gain +2/+2 and storm. So it becomes a 6/5 storm guy. It's a curious ability. It's got really cute artwork, but I don't think this card is. I actually don't think this card is really good. Um, it's only good if you get the enhance here, and then is this better than Forte? The answer is no. Forte is still better because it hits a little earlier and it hits a little harder. So uh, overall, I think this card is pretty poor. Next we have Pyrosine Dragon. 4 for 3/4 because of 5/6 premium stat. 5/5 and discard one of the lowest cost cards in your hand 2 times. And then last words, draw 3 cards here. So again, this is like the discard mechanic that you, for whatever reason, they're trying to push here. The card is good, especially in a discard deck, but the problem I have with discard is that there aren't enough benefits to discarding, right? Like some people would say there is, but a lot of the discard cards basically cycle, which is pretty terrible, right? Unless you're trying to get to a late game finisher in particular, which is why discard Satan or Prince of Darkness is actually pretty viable. Um, it's a good card, but I just don't. I'm finding it really hard to imagine discard being a legitimate thing. Next you have Owl Guardian. Now this is a card I really like. 6 for 4/6 becomes a 5/7, so that's about average. Maybe a little bit understated here. It has Ward, Evolve, and then discard one of the lowest cost cards in your hand, and then do 5 damage to enemy follower. This is insane. Like it's so powerful. Like there's no reason to not run it in any deck except for an aggro deck, right? Like holy cow! Like look at that ability. It basically kills something, right? For a discard and an evolve, and then this guy's going to trade into something and it's going to ward your other guys. So it's a really, really good card. You'll see play everywhere, I think. In Take 2, this is probably one of the better picks as well. Next, we have Draconic Fever or Super Ramp. Gain an empty play point orb, draw 2 cards, and then resolve 3 defense to a leader. This is a really, really, really nice card. I like it a lot. It kind of fits that issue where you know how ramp used to be, like you draw all your ramp and then you're like at 10 mana like super early in the game, like turn 6 or 5 or something outrageous like that, and then you die because you have no cards in your hand and you have no health. But this is kind of like they were saying you can still play ramp, but here take your cards and have a bit more health. It's a good card. I'm not sure if you see play because ramp is like aggro is such a prominent thing right now, and aggro actually has more sustain than control decks for whatever reason. Um, but I don't know. It might be good enough if the meta slows down enough, which I think it just might slow down just barely enough for this to be good to see play. Next we have Lux Fan Kit. If this card is discarded, summon Lux Fan Kit. So I really like this card. This is the kind of card that you need to print to make this card viable, right? Like discarding is such a poor thing to do. Like sure you can cycle, but and then what, right? If you discard and you don't cycle, then it's terrible. If you discard and you don't deal damage to something, it's terrible. And when you discard, you lose the card once and for all. But this one is like, oh, if I get discarded, you get me back. So like this is the kind of card you will see this played in discard decks. It's actually pretty good. Like even in Take 2 where you're bound to have like 1 or 2 discard abilities. It's a really good card, and you should expect to see this played quite a bit, especially if control or discard style decks become a thing. Next we have Dragon Tamer, 2 for 2/2 becomes a 4/4 Fanfest. Give an allied follower +1/+1 to overflow is active. It's a good ability, but overall I think it's just not good enough. Like Dragoncraft has better 2 drops, like the one that pings for 1. There's the good old Dragon War soldier card, right? With the plus +2, that's the insane one that gains attack for every evolve follower. So like there are better 2-drops than this, and so I don't think it makes the cut anywhere. Next we have Griffin Knight, 3/4/2/3, +4/5 fanfare. Randomly discard one of the lowest cost cards in your hand and then deal 2 damage to every follower. Yeah, that's a good card. Like this is the kind of ability that you have to push, like forcibly force down the meta, like push into the meta if you want to make an archetype thing. It's a good card, and you will see it play in this card. Even in Take 2, it's a really good card. Like removal and a follower is such a big deal. Next we have Dragonclaw Pendant, 5 cost amulet. When your follower spells and effects deal +1 damage. This is one of those. It's a good card in a vacuum, but I think practical wise, it's just not good enough. So overall, it's a pretty poor card. Probably won't see play. So that's all for the Dragoncraft. So obviously they're trying to push this card even harder. Again, I'm really hard pressed to see how this card can be viable. The only discard deck I think is good is discard Prince of Darkness. Just because you get to cycle into Prince of Darkness pretty quickly here. You have the ramp, you have the removal, you cycle, and then you get Prince of Darkness on 10 and then you win. There are some tools here that help it sustain or survive long enough, but again, if the meta maintains its like level of aggressiveness, I don't think that archetype will kick off. But I'm just gonna go on a wild guess and say that control Dragoncraft will become a thing. There are enough tools here, I think, to make slow down the meta enough that things like Owl Guardian and Breath of the Salamander will be pretty viable. I like it a lot. Overall, pretty good set for Dragoncraft. You can tell they're getting quite a bit of love for their, like they're not really printing new things for them like in the other decks where it's like a lot of these are like new styles of cards. These are just support cards for already existing archetype, which I think is really necessary here. Next we have Shadowcraft, and we're gonna start with the legendary Nephilis. Nephilis is a... Alright, so that was a pretty weird thing, like I got like a last minute call. So yeah, Nephilis, fanfare randomly put followers in different costs, excluding Nephilis from your deck to your into play, and then until your area so then destroy those followers. So this is a really interesting card. The general rule for a card like this is combo, which is making definitely Tyrant. I certainly hope that's what they're pushing, but yeah, overall the card I think is really cool. It is a very combo-oriented deck, which I really like. A card rather that I really like, and I hope that definitely Tyrant becomes a thing because I've been trying to make it work for a while now. It's a good card. Probably not good in Take 2 unless you can like get a... Basically, you can't... Like, if you pick this early, you're just going to have to fish up for every single last word card you can get. And if you can't do that, then you don't pick this at the end. So, it's one of those kind of cards where you will form your Take 2 deck around it. As well as, like, constructed where you kind of slot this into any deck. The only real upside here is that you can, like, get a Mordecai pretty early. That's pretty cool. You can fish out a Mordecai if you think about it, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I like this card a lot. You'll probably see play in like a control style deck though, or combo oriented deck. Next we have Shadow Reaper, 2 for 1/1 because it's 3/3 fanfare. Gain ambush until the end of your opponent's your opponent's turn. Whenever another allied follower is destroyed, gain +1. Whenever allied followers gain +1. Okay, so it's basically one of those growing cards. I think it's just not good enough. Like the base stat line doesn't seem good enough, and you can't necessarily reliably be trading into your opponent's features. Like on curve, this card is bad, but like you could hold it and hope that you pull something off later on. But overall, I think this card is just really, really poor. Next, we have Pact with the Nether God. Destroy an enemy follower with 4 or less defense, enhance 7. Then summon a Pluto and give it plus X plus Y, X equals some attack, and Y equals the defense of destroyed follower. So 4 or less defense. But this card is actually, I'm gonna say this card is actually pretty poor. Like, sure you get the fish out of Pluto, but as turn 7 like 5/5 Pluto is like something 5 Pluto is not great. I don't like the card. I don't think I'll see play anywhere. Maybe in Take 2, but that's really optimistic. Next we have Bella, 6/4/3/6. Really interesting stat line there. A little bit weaker than like even our Guardian. Bane last words deal 3 damage to all enemy followers. Yeah, it's a good card. We definitely see it played in a lot of decks. Um, Especially in that combo oriented deck here with the Nephthys. Solid card, really good in Take 2 as well. Um, yeah. Next we have Lurching Corpse, 2/1/2, got a 3/4. Can only attack the enemy leader and followers with ward. Last words destroy a random enemy follower. Now, that's really interesting here. Like, this is a really good like control tool in a way. Like, either control, like no, rather a really good like aggro tool. Like, it basically says I'm forced to attack you in the face all the time. It just screams aggro. At the same time, it has a destroy ability that you don't really want to attack into it. Well, this is, as I said, going to be good in aggro. Uh, I think it will be, but it's just like versatile enough that we probably even see play in like a slower control deck. So I do expect to see this quite a bit here. The 2 drops are generally quite mediocre, if I remember correctly. Like the one with the evolve ability is pretty bad. Um, the Skull Crater Widower is alright, I guess, but and there's like there's definitely room for this card. I think it'll definitely see play. Next we have Necro Assassin. 4/3/4 becomes 3/3 becomes a 5/5, so that is still premium. As long as you hit the 5 threshold, I think it's pretty good. Fanfare, destroy an allied follower and a random enemy follower doesn't activate the stone. This is a really cool ability here. I actually like it a lot here. I think it's really powerful because like clearly they're trying to push the last words theme a little bit more here, and this is like a really good activator for last words. Just remember to attack first before you play this. Really good card. I think it will see play in like that combo oriented style deck that I was talking about before. Next you have Underworld Watchman Kawi, 7/4/5 becomes a 6/7, so that's understated. I believe it is understated. Ward last words randomly discard randomly destroy one of the strongest enemy followers in play and then restore X defense to your enemy leader. X equals to the destroyed follower's attack. So it's basically a really powerful control tool. It's insanely powerful control tool actually because it's board as well. And it has last words that basically says um, like its defense is high enough that um, whatever's going into it, like it's going to eat up all the small guys. And if your opponent trades the big guy into it, it's going to eat up the big guy. So no matter what, it's just really, really good removal, I think. Powerful card. I like it. You'll see play in like a control deck, but other than that, probably not. Next we have Ghostly Grass, destroy enemy follower with 1 defense. If you have enough shadows, you can choose to use Necromancy 8 to destroy an enemy follower with 2 defense or more instead. This is a good card. You'll see play, especially in Take 2. Moving on, we have Zombie Buccaneer, 3/2/2, so for 4 Necromancy 2. Last word, summon a zombie is a good card, but strictly in Take 2, I think. It's too hard to pull off the Necromancy, I think. Next we have Feathered Troller, 3/3/2, plus a 5/4. Ward, Necromancy 4, deal 2 damage to enemy follower. Good card, probably not good enough for Take 2, for Constructed, but definitely in Take 2. Attendant of Night, 1/1 becomes a 3/3/3. Can only attack the enemy leader and followers with ward. Last word, summon a lich. So it's basically a better uh, the version of the 4 drop. Yeah, I like it. Uh, and you'll probably see play like if the 3 drop sees play, there's no reason why. Or rather, if the 4 drop sees play, there's no reason why the 3 drop wouldn't see play. Sure, you kind of attack the opponent's face, but how often are you actually smacking your opponent in the face with a 1/1? Probably not as much as you think. So yeah, I think it is just strictly better. Next we have Ghost Hound Sexton, 2 for 2/2 because of 4/4 average. Fanfare. All the other followers in play will be destroyed instead of being banished. All other followers that come into play will be destroyed instead of being banished. Okay, that's kind of neat, I guess. Or allied, right? Yeah, not other, or allied. So it's a really interesting effect. I think it's just such a poor card that you probably won't see play. I'm guessing that this is like a nerf to Shadowcraft in Take Two, basically. So it's a bad card. Don't play it anyway. Voices of Resentment. Summon 2 ghosts. Enhance 8. Give the summon ghost Bane. That's pretty nuts. Like this is, don't get me wrong. This is like purely a Take Two card, but it's a really good Take Two card. It's basically 8 destroy 2 minutes. Pretty decent. So yeah, overall, not too many things. It's clear that they're trying to push a more combo-oriented deck here with some of these cards. Combo in the sense that they want to push last words for this craft, which is pretty apparent. And I think that it might actually be successful. Mid-range and aggro Shadowcraft are not really very prominent. They're not really very powerful, even though I would argue that mid-range Shadowcraft is probably the best deck to ladder. Like I've had like insane success, like 10 win streaks at like A3 kind of thing. It is pretty viable, I think, and like I think this version of deck would probably be superior to that. So I do expect Shadowcraft to become a lot more prominent in the future expansion. But we have to see to know for sure. Like it's too early to tell. A lot of these cards are pretty much nerfs to Take Two as well. So it's a really cool way to balance out Shadowcraft. So yeah, overall the set I like it a lot. Like it's not the best of the sets, but it's probably my favorite set. Moving on, we have Bloodcraft here. We have Blood Hungry Matriarch. 7 for 4, 5 becomes a 6. 7, really cool art. Fanfare deal 2 damage to all enemy followers. Whenever an enemy follower is destroyed, deal 1 damage to the enemy leader. This is a pretty good card. It's just like a really big, like a. It's both like a sweeper and a damage dealer, which I like. It's a good card. It's probably a really good pick for Take Two as well. But probably strictly a Take Two kind of pick. I don't think you'll see playing Constructed here unless they're able to push Constructed control blood again. It has Sadistic Knight. Some fancy artwork when you got there. Deal 2 damage to your leader, deal 6 damage to enemy followers. 7, then summon the Beast Dominator. This card is pretty nuts. Like I think this card might actually be like one of the best removals in the game. I like it a lot. Like I'll definitely play with this card quite a bit. In Take Two is insane as well. Like Beast Dominator is actually pretty good in Take Two. Next we have Masterma 5 for 6/6 because an 8/8, so really big creature. Bane can only attack the enemy leader and followers with ward. Sure, I like it. It's really good. Yeah, it kind of forces the clash effect to trigger, but I like this ability a lot. I think it's really powerful. Well, not so much the ability, but the follower. Like I think it would probably it's probably just even big and good enough to see play and Take Two. Next you have Ice Blade Warfiend, 7 for 5/7 becomes 7/9, so really good stats I think. Brush. Whenever this follower attacks and destroys enemy follower, if this follower is not destroyed, draw a card. Wow. It's like a really good like control card, uh, and I like it. Like it's got some really nice art as well. I think this is one of the best goals you can get outside of Revelation. So yeah, like I would argue this is better than Vampire Temptress as well, but it's at the very least it's on a similar power level. Um, it's a really good card. You definitely see it a lot, especially in Take Two. Like, my God, you're like, what would you pass up for this? I don't. It's so good that I actually think you would take this over Olivia in Take Two. Like, it's on a similar power level, Olivia. So insanely powerful card. Like, it's so good. Next we have Hungering Horde. Choose an enemy follower, deal 3 damage to it, and all enemy followers with the same name. That's an interesting ability here. Like this also looks like a FU to Otohime, even though technically if you played a control style, you would have the least problems with Otohime among all the classes. So it's a good card. I like it. It probably see play in like a very slow control deck, especially if things like banners and whatnot's prominent. Next you have Vampire Noble, 3 for 3/2. Ward Clash summon a Forest Bat. Sure, that's decent. I don't think it's great, but eh, probably won't see it later. Squall Lancer, 5 for 4/5. Comes a 5/6. Interesting artwork there. Fanfare do 2 damage to an enemy follower if Vengeance is active for you. Evolve you to do damage to an enemy follower. So I'm guessing the fan you can like if Vengeance is active you can proc its ability twice, which is pretty nuts. If not, you can just evolve it and proc the ability. So overall, it's a really good card actually. Like 5/6 is good enough for 5-drop. I like this card a lot. I don't know if you'll see playing in Constructed, but this is definitely a Take 2 card. So looks like they're trying to balance out Take 2 quite a bit. Next we have Flood Behemoth. This is the one that a lot of people are talking about. 6 for 4/6 becomes 6/8. That's good. Clash, do 1 damage to all enemy followers. That's really good as well. This is the biggest FU to aggressive decks I've ever seen. Like it's just gonna keep flooding, like storming down the board. Especially things like Banner stand no chance against this. As well as Tempo Elf kind of thing. I like it, yeah, but again, it's in a class that probably has the best, if not the best, the most, at the very least, the most access to hard removal, like flood board clears and stuff like that. So it's a good card. You probably see play a lot in Take Two, but just not good enough for Constructed. They said Executioner's X, give an allied follower rush, enhance 4, give it +2/+2. It's a poor card. I don't think it's good in any way whatsoever. Next we have Urias Levin Duke. 2 for 1/3. This is an interesting deadline. I don't think I've seen this before. It becomes a 3/5 or 2. Whenever an enemy follower passes away, do 1 damage to the enemy leader. It's a good ability as well. I like this card quite a bit here. I think it will definitely see play. It's a pretty good 2-drop, especially for a more control style deck. Next we have Alpha Wolfman, 3 for 2/2 becomes a 4/4. Bane, can summon Alpha Wolfman if Vengeance is active for you. Wow, that's actually really good here. The only problem is the Vengeance part, so you can't really play this on curve, but if you do play this on curve, it's a 2/2 with Bane, so it's not horrendous, but you definitely want to keep it for later on. Good card, but again, probably not constructive good. Next you have Moriana the Bejeweled, 4 for 3/3 becomes a 5/5. That's better than the typical stat line, just so you guys know. Fanfare recover 1 evolution point if Vengeance is active for you. Wow. Wow, what? What? That's insane. Yeah, really good card. I like it a lot here. Again, this like it does look a lot like a Take 2 card, but like never underestimate the power of evolution points here in the game. Yeah. Sorry, that's really loud. That's my stomach growling. I haven't ate actually. So yeah, really good card here. Probably see it in like a very slow control deck here. It just gives you like the option of not playing Olivia in the slow control deck for as a finisher. The only problem is that this Like generally you won't need Olivia in a Bloodcraft deck. Like even in with the new cards out, I don't think you would want to play Olivia here. So really good card, but probably only going to see play in Take Two. So overall, the set is really insane. They probably, with the exception of like Executioner's Axe, I think Bloodcraft actually got the best cards here, which is saying a lot. Um, Especially for like if you consider all this in a Take Two environment, it's a really powerful set here. Probably the best set among all the cards released here. So um, yeah, I do foresee that it will push Bloodcraft more into the meta. Now, what kind of deck spawns from this? It does look like a very controlly, mid-rangey-ish kind of deck. It's not going to be tempo, it's not going to be aggro. Uh, I'm just going to go on a whim and say it's going to be more control-oriented, but I could be totally wrong here. Um, so just keep that in mind here. Yeah, as much as I did predict, PTP and all that in the previous expansion, uh, like PTP being the most prominent deck, I did say some of my predictions may be wrong here, and to be fair, they could be wrong, but I like where they're going with this set, and I think Bloodcraft will be a pretty big force to reckon with in Take Two as well. So lastly, we have Havencraft here. We have Eidolon of Madness, 5/5. Evolve, become a 0/5, can't attack at the start of turn, evolve this follower, can't attack or be attacked at the start of your turn, destroy all allied followers or allied amulets. It's a really interesting card here. I'm not sure how I can't be attacked or be. I'm not sure how I feel about this. Like, this screams control to me. Like this kind of ability. The card itself is pretty cool, but I think it's just not good enough here to see playing constructed. But we'll see. Next we have Tribunal of Good and Evil. Countdown 3, Fanfare, destroy a random enemy follower. Last words, destroy a random enemy follower. So wow, basically destroy 2 followers. It's a pretty decent card. Like I don't think it's insanely good, but it's pretty decent. Probably again like the previous one, I don't think I'll see play here. I'm glad they're pushing this archetype, like the countdown amulet archetype, which is what I've always like associated with Havencraft. Like the whole storm nonsense didn't make sense to me. But yeah, it was really funny to me as well that the best aggressive deck probably had like Havencraft was just so versatile in the last expansion. Like they could really control. They could play mid range. They could play aggros. It just didn't make sense to me. So like I'm glad they're trying to steer it completely in a different direction. But again, I don't want one class to have like 10 different viable decks. That doesn't make sense to me. Next we have Harlan General, 6/4/3/3 becomes 5/5. That's poor. Fanfare, give an ally follow +3/+3 and ranch and rush. So yeah, really good ability here. I don't think it's very powerful though. Like it's one of the decks that I don't think you need this ability. So I'm just gonna go to whim and say that this is just a poor card. In Take Two is decent, but probably still not good enough. Next we have Luxhorn Cerisa, 7/5/5 becomes 7/7. That's about expected here. Rush cannot receive more than 3 damage at a time. So basically, it's saying that you're gonna have to hit this at least 3 times to kill it. That's pretty nuts, actually. Like, especially since it has Rush. Like, are you kidding me? Like, the thing about this is that it's a bit conflicting, right? Because it has Rush and like you want to have this ability on a big creature, so you want to evolve it. And evolving basically means Rush. So it's a bit of conflicting in abilities in that way, but it's a really powerful card here. Unfortunately, there's like so much access to removal in Take Two that I think this card is not good enough. Or rather, not in Take Two, but in Constructed. This card will not see play in Constructed. But you will see this in Take Two a lot. It's a really powerful card. Next you have Luxwing Reno, 2 for 2/2, becomes a 4/4, that's fair. Clash do 1 damage to the enemy leader, that's fair. Evolve do 1 damage to the enemy leader. Oh my god, why pushing aggro, right? This is a very aggressive card, there's no doubt about it. It screams aggro, not in terms of its art, but like its ability. It's a really aggressive card here. It will see play, especially like things like Stormhaven, which desperately need like a decent 2-drop that isn't menu. Like you run the ward dog in there, but like do you really want to? Like some people don't need to bother with that. So uh, yeah, you'll see this in Stormhaven. Next we have the Damus Oracle of in- Iniquity. Those are some big words. It looks like Demon Hunter from Diablo for whatever reason. A 3 for 3/2 becomes a 5/4. Whenever enemy follower attacks, destroy that follower at the end of the opponent's turn. Okay, yeah, it's a good ability. It's it's really curious about like why it's themed this way. Like Havencraft always had that really weird theme where half of it seems really angelic and the other half just seems really like satanic, for lack of better words. Um, but yeah, it's a good card. You'll definitely see it played pretty much anywhere, um, except maybe in Stormhaven because like you don't really want to have this kind of card in Stormhaven. There's no harm in having a card like this in Stormhaven, but at the same time, like there's no space for it. Next, you have Pegasus Sculpture. Countdown 4 at the end of your turn. Restore 1 defense to all allies. It's a crappy card. Don't take it. Don't see it, and you won't see it played. Ancient Lion Spirit 5 for 4/5 becomes a 4/5. Deal 2 evolve. Deal 2 damage to all enemy followers. Uh, yeah, sure, it's good. Like it's a good card. It's got some really horrendous art. Like Lion looks all kind of like retard, but uh, yeah, it's a good ability. Uh, it does look more like a take 2 card than anything else, so just keep that in mind. Next we have Master Sage 3 for 1/2 becomes a 3/4. At the end of the turn, subtract 1 from the countdown of all amulets. That's pretty good. In fact, it's so good that it makes me believe that the amulet theme is actually going to be really, really powerful. Amulet is a really control style deck if you think about it, because it's like a delayed uh, tempo kind of play. Next we have Frog Cleric 2 for 2/2 because of 4/4. Enhance 4, restore 3 defense to ally. So this is like support for arenas. You see it in arenas most likely, and that's about it. You know what I mean? Like it's a good card. It's just not good. Like you don't want to be paying for this ability. So keep that in mind. Next we have Veteran Tamer 4 for 2/3. Comes of 4/5. So this is ironically average stats. Fanfare, summon a Beastly Bow. Sure, that's cool. I think it's bad, but it's cool. Next, we have Manifestation of Faith. Randomly put 3 different countdown amulets that cost 2 play points or less from your deck into play. That's good. Like I like this card a lot. I think it's like basically saying pay 1 mana, draw 3 cards, and play it. It's pretty insane. I'm glad they're pushing this. So yeah, so now that we're done with this, it seems like amulets is the thing that they're trying to push, which I think is appropriate. Amulets is a very class, like countdown amulets is a very class specific thing to them, and I'm glad they're pushing it. Whether I think it's better than Storm, I'm just going to say no. Like Stormhaven is so good, like it has enough sustain to even like beat control decks that it doesn't make sense to me. Like why would you play this, right? So we have to see how it goes here. There's no one card that's like really, really, really outstanding here. Um, the exception of like Luxon, but that's only for like a take 2 environment if you ask me. So overall, I think Havencraft has the worst set, which I'm glad because you don't want them to get any better. Like at least not too much better, because there's already enough diversity in the class, anyways. So yeah, so that's all for my review for this guy, for this Rise of Bahamut. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video here. Do feel free to leave a comment and let me know if you guys have any takes on this. Like, I will be playing the expansion quite a bit. Do follow me on the stream. I will put the link uh, in the description below so you can follow me. I cannot guarantee when I'll be streaming, unfortunately, but I'm hoping to get back into the habit of streaming here. It's going to be really difficult because of work, but we'll see how it goes. And yeah, I'll see you guys online. This is JP signing off.